Hello and welcome to Gangzol here. My name is Ryan Sampson, the host and producer of the show. I'm going to introduce my guys, Brian Costello and Frankie Vittorini, in a second. Today is Thursday, March 20th, and we're back, fellas. A couple weeks in free agency have gone through. The Jets have made some moves. They've acquired a new quarterback in Justin Fields. We're going to break down a lot of this and what this Jets regime has been doing this offseason, and we're going to discuss it all along this show and where this franchise seems to be going as the draft is fastly approaching here and pretty much a little bit over a month here. But before we get to any of that stuff, I'm going to start off with Kaz, our Jets beat writer. How's it going? How are you enjoying the offseason? How are you feeling right now, man?
I'm good, Ryan. It's good. A little lull right now. After post that, I mean, the Jets weren't that active in free agency with in terms of big names, so wasn't the craziest free agency period. But yeah, looking forward to watching some basketball today and baseball next week, and then football will be back in full swing. The draft, for me, the draft season really kicks in. Once the NCAA tournament is over, I feel like that's when you really start hitting the mock drafts hard and all that stuff. And we got the owners meetings. I'm going to the owners meetings on March 30th. So we
Okay,
do have that. Yeah.
so
So
we do have that.
we'll hear from Aaron Glenn there. We'll hear from Darren Mougey there. I assume Woody Johnson. I'm not positive he usually talks there, but I haven't, I don't know if that's for sure. So we'll hear from them then.
Frankie Vittorini from U Stadium. How you feeling, buddy? How's the offseason going for you?
You know what, man? It's been a very weird off season. I'm not really excited about much, but maybe that's a good thing. So I'm just kind of floating through it. I'm just waiting and seeing. It's an odd one, isn't it? Little different than years past,
I
that's for
will
sure.
say, so we'll get to the rest of the offseason of how the Jets have approached this. They are not the offseason champs like they usually are of years past, right? Like how Jets fans love.
Chicago Bears, hang the banner.
That's right, hang the banner. Cause the
Yes.
Jets have been hanging the banner for years now in the offseason, and this is a much different and vastly different, I should say, approach in how they've gone about it. But I want to start with Justin Fields, guys. Justin Fields, it felt like it was going this way from what we heard before the official signing happened, where the Jets were going to pivot for the quarterback search. And they get him on a 2-year deal, $40 million. This is the first time I get to talk to both Frankie and Kaz about the Justin Fields signing here on Gangzol here. So I'll start off with Kaz. What did you make of the signing? What did you make of the deal? And do you believe that the Jets are taking a smart approach here by signing a Justin Fields?
Yeah, I think it is a smart approach, Ryan. Going back, I think I did a post Sports Plus, my newsletter back at I think it was the last week of the season, maybe. And I started looking at like, okay, if the writing was on the wall that Rodgers was not going to be back, where can they go here? And you started looking at it, and the quarterback free agency options weren't great, but like it's like, all right, Justin Fields, maybe he's the next Baker Mayfield, maybe he's the next Sam Darnold, maybe he's the next Geno Smith, where it's a guy change of scenery, can revive his career, has obviously had talent that got him drafted in the first round. So that made sense. And so I think it was heading that way. And so to me, like, look, it's a risk. Like the odds are it's not going to work, right? Like I think the odds are not like you probably put it at, I'd say like a 25% chance that like this like he's the and I'm when I say work, I mean like he's the guy and you decide like, hey, like this could be our quarterback for the next 5 years, that kind of thing. Um, that I think there's lower chances of that. That being said, I think this is a smart move. I think it was worth a swing. I don't think where they are drafting, at number 7, from everything I've heard from these draft gurus, that's a place where you want to take Jackson Dart, I guess, is the third quarterback. The veterans out there weren't all that appealing. We see teams are kind of tripping over each other, the Giants and the Steelers, to get Aaron Rodgers. Like there's not much else out there. So I think it was a good move. I thought the contract was fine,
Mm-hmm.
Frankie. Like you're talking about a quarterback, so it's a different
Yeah.
world than the other position. So I was fine with them paying 30 million guaranteed. I think that's a great price if he ends up again being the quarterback, and it was worth a shot.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the contract they gave him on over the cap, they added 4 void years after the first two. So that's
Mm.
that's
I don't understand why the NFL lets teams do these void years.
I
Honestly,
don't
like
understand it either.
it's
it's like
it's
it's
I
like
never
it's like
will.
cheating the cap. It's like I just don't get it. I don't get it. Like it's like, all right, well, we're gonna tack on all these fake years to lower the cap number. Like the Jets have used it in recent years a lot, but I just don't get it. But go ahead, sorry,
No,
Ryan.
no, you're okay.
That's
Listen,
my
Kaz,
real my real
you are
side rant on
no,
on
you're
void
highlighting
years.
something that a lot of teams are doing. To your point, and they're using the void years as a way to lower the cap hit. But yeah, I mean, you look at the breakdown. Essentially, it's a 2-year, $40 million deal, $30 million guarantee, like you said. Frankie, I want to kick this to you. This question, this is a low risk move, right? It's you're taking the chances of a guy who's in his 5th year. Hasn't really lived up to the hype of a first round pick, has shown flashes, is athletically one of the most talented quarterbacks you could say, using his legs and being mobile. We haven't seen that full potential as a passer from Justin Fields, but this feels like another one of those Sam Darnold, maybe even if you want to paint a Geno Smith, finding a guy later in his career and maybe taking a chance on him to see if he can help you win a bunch of games. Do you think that this is that type of move that the Jets are trying to make here, Frankie?
Well, yeah, I think it depends based on what Tanner Engstrand wants to do with the offense. Because if you take a look at what Detroit was doing, for example, it's a little weird to think that being the passing game coordinator with Jared Goff, that would mesh well with Justin Fields. They almost seem like they're the opposite style of quarterbacks. But with that being said, I do think when you look at the read option or option read, I know we say it both ways, Ryan, on this show all the time. But with the read option, you're able to open things up for Breece Hall and for Braylon Allen. And I really think the Jets need to come into this season and see how much value they can get out of Breece and Braylon Allen and do similar things to what Jalen Hurts does in Philly, what Lamar Jackson does in Baltimore. Run it as much as you can. Justin Fields has the second most rushing yards in a single season for a quarterback ever. Yards per game wise, he's won. So he had over 1,100 rushing yards his second year in Chicago. There's something there. Now, I do worry a little bit about his mental makeup to the degree of his confidence. He's been beaten around a little bit. He's been promised things. He's been having things taken away. He's been with situations, offensive staffs that haven't really supported what he does well. I'm worried about his confidence. He seems a little timid in a way. And I think if he can break through that and become like that Jalen Hurts, that leader, that general, he can start being a successful NFL quarterback. Now, is that here? Like Kaz was saying, probably not. But is it worth the risk for $20 million a year? Which again, Daniel Jones is getting 14 mil for this year. Probably. So I'm not looking too much into it. I don't think it's a solution. But I also don't think it's a problem. I actually think it's a good idea overall.
So, Kaz, I got to ask you, based off what Frankie's saying, and I agree to an extent here, is, what are the realistic expectations we can have for this Jets offense with Tanner Engstrand and Justin Fields using him in his first year here?
Yeah, I think it's too soon to know about expectations, Ryan. Or they still have moves to make. Like I don't know who's playing right tackle. I don't know who's the wide receivers at tight end right now. But I think it puts a lot of pressure on Tanner Engstrand in his first year here because of what Frankie was saying. Like it's on him to design an offense to take advantage of what Justin Fields does well and Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. And I have a prediction to make that I'll go week 3 or 4. We'll be saying, why isn't Justin Fields running more? That's gonna be the Jets Twitter universe conversation, and we'll be talking about is why they should be running more. Like I feel like that's coming for sure. But look, like I go back and I watched the season, and I just watched the second Patriots game, the one in Foxborough.
Yeah.
And like they were like trying to establish the run, and it like couldn't do it. They couldn't run. They stopped running. It was like I feel like we watched that all year, and one of the big like problems of last year to me was like why couldn't the Jets freaking run the ball well? And they ended up with the fewest rushing attempts in the NFL. Like so that has to flip. Like that has to flip. This team, if this team is going to compete, they've got to be able to run the ball. And I know we've praised the offensive line and they did a great job in pass protection. They didn't do that great in the run game.
Nope.
So, we talk, they got 4 pieces back. Like it's great. Like they've got to do a better job and maybe a new offensive line coach will help in that department. Maybe a new offensive coordinator will help in that department. But yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on Tanner Engstrand in year one, not like hot seat pressure, but I just think there's going to be a lot of eyes on him. How does he design an offense for Justin Fields?
Yeah, and you have to wonder the big component here and the big offseason topic I think a lot of Jets fans are asking themselves is when you brought in Justin Fields, how does this affect Garrett Wilson, considering these guys played together at Ohio State? So, Kaz, this is where I'm going to go to here. Listen, it's out there. It's that storyline of you brought in a Justin Fields. He was teammates with Garrett Wilson. They played really well there. They have a connection together. Does this at all affect Garrett Wilson's long-term prospects here with the Jets and getting a long-term extension when they bring in Justin Fields?
I don't think it affects the long-term process. I think it quiets the short-term happiness. Like I'm sure Garrett's happy. That is, it'll make him happy. I find I talked to somebody in Chicago and they said, oh yeah, they're like, I love this storyline of Garrett Wilson. Is going to be so happy with the, because that's going to last until about week 2 when he's running wide open and Fields doesn't see him. Because that was like, you talk to people in Chicago, that's the knock they gave me on Field is like, there are guys running wide open and he just doesn't see them and doesn't throw the ball. And that was like a lot of the frustration with the Bears. So like, yeah, just the Garrett Wilson will be just as miserable once that happens. So look, Ryan, there's one factor that's going to come to whether Garrett Wilson wants to stay with the Jets long term. How much are they going to pay him? And it's always about the money. So, and we can talk about that topic if you want to later, more in depth. But to me, it's going to be all about what the Jets want to pay him and not who the quarterback is.
Yeah, and Kaz, I think Aaron Glenn is no stranger to Justin Fields. He's faced him a bunch as the Lions defensive coordinator. He's gone up against him 5 times when Justin Fields was with the Bears. Fields went 2-3 against him. He had 3 100 rushing yard games against the Lions when he was with the Bears. He also completed only 57% of his passes in those games. 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So it will be like Glenn's seen it. Like he's seen it up close and personal. Yeah. And this seems like he had a lot of factor in this decision of I want to get Justin Fields and see what we can do with Tanner Engstrand and him.
Yeah, I don't know for sure if that's the case, Ryan. I haven't talked to, we'll talk to him at the owners' meetings and get more tape. I will say this, my experience with defensive head coaches, they hate running quarterbacks because it's 11 on 11 football, right? And I go back to Rex. If you remember, like Rex was fascinated with the Wildcat. Like he was always he always wanted the Wildcat in his offense. Even after the Wildcat really went out of vogue, like people figured it out, Rex was still running it because he, as a defense coordinator, frustrated the hell out of him. So like, and he would explain like, it's, you're no longer playing, you're basically playing 11 on 10 in the running game in defense. And now it's 11 on 11 if the quarterback can run. And that would bother him. So most defensive coordinators are like that. They do not like running quarterbacks. So you're probably right. I'm going to guess Aaron Glenn is a fan or this move wouldn't have happened.
Frankie, overall, we know, like you said, the run game has to be a huge factor in this offense, and they have to get Breece Hall and Braylon Allen going. I just wonder if they are, like Kaz said, can this offense be consistent enough and use the read option or the option read, however you want to call it, and be effective with it? Do they have the right personnel on the offensive line to what Kaz is saying too? And I think they're a little light in the middle. Like Elijah Vera Tucker is not the biggest fella. Joe Tippmann is not the heaviest center. He's not a big guy. He's kind of long and lean. I just wonder if they don't have enough beef up in the middle to be able to establish a run game like they want to.
Yeah, I don't think they do, Ryan, but I also don't necessarily think that they're going to focus too much on running between the tackles as much as we think. I think they want to get Breece the ball out in space. If you look at what Ben Johnson and the Lions offense was doing last year, they had a lot of times these offensive tackles, guards out in space, running bubble screens, running some unique things. I mean, they even had Penei Sewell, throwing, HB toss passes too. Like, they like to keep things open and fast. So I think Fields played into that a little bit in their thinking, like, let's just get this guy moving. Let's get Breece out in space. But we have no idea. Like, we don't know what kind of offense Tanner Engstrand is going to run. I don't think anyone can even really give you a good, clear-cut hypothesis there. I mean, there's really nothing. There's no proof in the pudding. There's nothing. So, but based on what I'm seeing, Ryan, what it's looking like, I think they want speed, and they started with Fields, I would say, in that department on offense. So.
Yep, and I think you're right, Frankie, about the getting guys in space. I mean, Penei Sewell, one of the best tackles in the game, so makes you wonder what the Jets could be doing at 7 with the draft. They need a right tackle, and we'll talk about now the rest of the approach in free agency for the Jets, guys. Let's focus our shift over here. I got to ask you both. I'll start off with Kaz. How do you assess what the Jets have done thus far? I think fans have been less than enthusiastic, to say the least, underwhelmed by the regime's first free agent approach in the offseason. For once, the Jets are not the offseason champs, like I said. Mougey and Glenn have taken a very conservative approach. They're buying, it seems like, on the upside of unproven young guys who can still enter their prime and maybe get them to their full potential. That's what it feels like on some of these free agent moves. But I'll start there, Kaz. How do you feel about this Jets approach in free agency?
Okay-ish. Like I get it. I get what they're trying to do. It's 24 to 28-year-olds, like you said. To me, right, there's like 3 different categories of free agency. There's the big ticket, first day, big money free agents. There's the middle class, which is sort of, you can do like 3-year deals and they're getting kind of mid-range money. And then there's the bargain bin, which is your 1-year deals. I thought they'd be more active in the middle class area. That's kind of my only surprise here. I did not think they'd be big ticket shoppers. I guess you could throw Fields in that category. Quarterback, still a good deal for a quarterback. Brandon Stevens is really the only contract I look at that's maybe in the middle class, right? 3 years for him at $12 million a year. But the rest of them are bargain bin to me. And that can work, but you better nail the draft. And so, like, this is, I really like watching how the Ravens operate. I think they're like a model front office. And this is the Ravens. They draft, develop, let guys leave, get comp picks, because the theory is the more picks they have, the better they'll do. So, but the Ravens draft better than anybody. And that's the key to the whole thing. And we don't know, with Mougey, how he's going to draft. And it's, you may have heard, it's difficult. Drafting is hard. There's not many teams that draft really well consistently every year. And then the second piece I would give to this approach, Rye, is like, if you're going to do this, you got to stick with it. They can't just abandon this if this season doesn't go well, and then next year go back into like, hey, we're going to give $100 million to this, guard that somebody let go, like that kind of stuff. Like, just this has to be the approach, because I feel like we've seen this before. There's like this narrative out there, like, oh, the Jets have no, the Jets have been cheap before in free agency. They've tried. Douglas tried to do this in 2020, and then they went 2-14, and it was like he didn't. Outside of like 2015 and then 2019, the last year was a little bit weirder. It was like 1-year deals for older guys, but they've been years where they haven't spent a ton. But the pendulum seems to always swing with the Jets.
Yeah.
It's like 1 year they're not spending, and the next year they're spending a lot. And they just this is going to be your philosophy. Stick with your philosophy is what I'd say. But the drafting, they're going to have to draft a lot of good players because there's a lot of holes on this roster right now.
Frankie, how do you feel about it, man?
Yeah, I agree with Kaz. Honestly, I think the draft is going to mean everything for them in terms of developing out anything on the front line, in the back of the house, and also from a culture, standpoint. The move that I don't understand is what Kaz you brought up. This Stevens move. I don't get it. I'm starting to think they don't want him to be their CB2, their second corner. I think they want to put him maybe a little bit at safety, maybe because he's a good plug corner and he's a really good tackling corner. They're trying to address that on the outside. But out of everything they've done, I'm fine with it to the degree of not tying yourself down with anything too long term. Trying to organically build this thing. I think I like that approach better than trying to spend all this money like the New England did, and sort of making it happen in the right way to a degree, if you could turn it into the right way. But the Stevens thing, I just don't get. I mean, you would like an extra comp pick, right, Kaz, out of that? I mean, what are kind of your thoughts with the whole,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm curious what they say position wise, Frankie. I do think
Yes.
the contract kind of says to me he's cornerback, right? Like I don't know, but um and talking to guys in Baltimore, they said it was just weird. Like he's in good position. Like they said, like his coverage is really good, and I think the analytics show that. But he just doesn't find the ball, and
He doesn't
so
break on it last
He had
minute.
zero
Yeah, he's always
interceptions
there, but he
last
doesn't
year.
break. Yeah.
Zero
he's always
interceptions
in
last
like the neighborhood. But like when I first like looked up his like yards against and catches allowed on PFF, I was like, wait a second, is this for his career or last year? Like it was bad. Like last year was
Last
bad.
year was bad.
And like you saw, like Ravens fans were all like celebrating that he left. Like he really took the brunt because the Ravens had drafted cornerback, and so like they really the teams really targeted Stevens last year. You talked about Fields' confidence. I'm wondering where this guy's confidence is at after last year. He took a beating. So yeah, we'll see. Like it's to me, they're rolling the dice on a lot of these players,
Yep.
right? Like can they get can they have a bounce back year or can they break out? They'll probably hit on one or two of them, but like it's not going to be all of them. So I get it. It's a little kind of a volume approach there, but yeah, I don't the contract didn't bother me that much either because like
It's
you look
really
at what
only a
cornerbacks
2-year
got.
deal if you look at
Yeah,
it.
and look what cornerbacks are getting. I think
Yeah.
everyone goes like, gosh, like no, like look at what the cornerbacks are getting at. Look what like DJ
That's
Reed
true.
got a nice paycheck. Carlton Davis got a really nice paycheck. Like obviously the market went up with JC Horn now and Derek Stingley. Like the cap keeps exploding. So like these numbers are going to go up and up. Like it kind of reminds me of like at baseball at one point, middle relievers all of a sudden started getting like crazy contracts. You're like, wait a second, but it's just the finances of the sport now.
Yeah, and Kaz, I think Frankie did bring up a good point about the comp picks because you saw a guy like Javon Kinlaw, who, let's be real, had one of the worst seasons I think I've seen in a Jets uniform, get a monstrous deal from the Washington Commanders. And the Jets would have gotten a great comp pick for that, but they sign a guy like Brandon Stevens. I know it doesn't work exactly like one for one, but
yeah, I mean, like,
it's
look, guys, like I get the comp pick thing, and I mentioned the Ravens and the Kings of it.
I
I
was about
do
to say
think
that.
you got to sort of establish a little bit of a base before you start worrying about comp pick. Like they need players.
correct.
Like they need somebody who's going to go out there and play cornerback. So
True. Yeah.
like you can't have it both ways. Like they do need some players. I think the comp pick thing is something you really try to start doing once you get your foundation established and you can kind of and like we said, like you're drafting guys where you don't have to do this. But I think right now they do have to sign some players to fill out the roster.
Yep, and like Kaz said before, 9 of the 13 free agents the Jets have signed were added this offseason are 27 or younger. None are 30. None of them are 30. 6 were drafted in the first 4 rounds in 2021. Obviously, Justin Fields was the 11th overall by the Bears. Stevens, Andre Sisco, Josh Myers, and tackle, I'm not even going to try and say his first name, but Okorafor.
He's the guy I can't figure out why they signed, Frankie.
So that one,
Yeah,
Kaz
that's a
and
weird
Frankie.
That one baffles me.
27 years old. Okorafor was with the Patriots last season. He was benched in week 1.
Until he wasn't.
Till he wasn't, but he did start 55 games for the Steelers from 2020 to 2023. He looks like the potential backup swing tackle for the Jets. Yeah, I mean, I understand people say, I don't understand that move, but I do understand he's good insurance policy for right tackle if you can't draft a one in the first round, Kaz.
Yeah, I just, a guy who leaves the team, I'm kind of like that gives me pause. Does he actually want to play football? Like what I'm assuming they did their research there, but like I would want to know what they found out and what they heard from him and what they heard from people that were in New England last year. That one's a little weird to me. And like, look, I'll say this, guys, about the last regime. Like, as I've been watching guys leave, they did a really good job in terms of like character guys. Like they did not bring in idiots here, and a lot of the guys you like walking out the door the last few weeks. I'm kind of like, oh man, like in terms of my job, like I'm gonna miss some of these guys in the locker room. Um, so like stuff like that, like is a red flag to me. And maybe he's fine. I don't know, but I just kind of like some of these guys that they've signed. I've heard some things about that. I'm like, ugh, I don't know how well they're doing in the character department right now.
Yeah, and I
It could be
Go
too
ahead,
that
Frankie.
Well, I was gonna say, I think Glenn and Mougey, this is their first time really doing this. So, cause they may not have as much intel on some of these character potential
Yeah.
issues with some of these guys. They're just looking at the talent like they are with Stevens, we were talking about, and some of these other players. I do like that we started off free agency. We kicked it off with bringing back Sherwood. I thought that was a good move. A little bit pricey, a bit, but it is what it is. Nothing too crazy, and I do love the value of him just being our middle linebacker for the next 2, 3, 4 years. So I was a big
Yeah.
Sherwood fan even before this year, cause I've always really liked his style. I don't think he's the best as a front seven guy necessarily, but I love the way he moves laterally and sort of last year covered up for a lot of those missed tackles we saw all throughout the year. So I'm
Yeah.
overall a very big Sherwood fan.
Well,
Yeah, I thought he proved he could be a starting linebacker in the NFL last year, which good. And the money, I heard a funny story regarding the money. The Jets were trying to re-sign him early last year. And obviously the money early last year was nowhere close to what he got now. And there was
What was it, 20-ish?
at some
18 to
point
20, something like that.
at some point, with Mosley dealing with the injuries, Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, said, "Yeah, I think we're going to pause negotiations now," and they just stopped negotiations in the middle of the season, and that's why Drew Rosenhaus is very good at what he does, and he landed his client a very nice contract. But it's a great story too. Like Sherwood, converted safety, kind of was a special teams player, got hurt his rookie year, and then kind of waited and developed. Like that's what you want, right? Like, we're talking about draft and develop. The Jets don't have enough Jamie and Sherwoods out there. Like that's been part of the problem is we're all going to focus on the number 7 pick, but like Sherwood's 5th round pick, Michael Carter 2 is a 5th round pick. Those are like the only like mid round guys that have played well for the Jets and become starters in during the Douglas time, and that's part of the problem with Joe's time as GM. So that's what they need to start doing. So I think Sherwood, yeah, it was good to see him get that contract.
it really was. And Kaz, that pivots my next discussion here. I read your column on Post Sports Plus yesterday. It caught my eye. The Tannenbaum with Rex Ryan, their first offseason, the moves they made really improved their team that year. It set I would say their culture and vision for what they were trying to do. And the two moves that really highlighted were the Braylon Edwards trade and obviously moving up to get the pick for Mark Sanchez in that draft. They traded away guys that were on the team already. And this raises my question about someone like a Quincy Williams.
Yeah.
He sees someone like Jamie Sherwood get a huge pay raise, and Quincy's been one of the best linebackers, I would say, in football over the last couple of years. He's looking at himself. He's in the last year of his current deal. Where's my pay raise? So could the Jets potentially look to move Quincy, or are they going to hold on to him in the last year of his deal?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be fascinating because I heard Quincy wanted a raise last year. I heard he wasn't really happy last year. He had 2 years left on his deal, so I'm sure he's really not happy now. I'm sure he's happy for Jamie and Sherwood. Don't get me wrong, but I'm sure is saying, "Where's mine?" No, like the point I was kind of making, Ryan, with the Tannenbaum thing. Tannenbaum took advantage of Eric Mangini being the Browns coach. He knew Eric valued players maybe on the Jets roster that other people didn't value as much. So, he traded Brett Ratliff, the 3rd string quarterback. He traded Jason Trusnick, who was a special teams player, Abe Elam, Kenyon Coleman. Like these weren't household names. And then it lowered the draft compensation because like they moved from 17 to 5 to get Sanchez, and they gave up no future picks for that. They gave up, they swapped their first, they gave up a second, they gave up a bunch of players. So to me, you've got two head coaches from last year are out there right now. Salah's in San Francisco, Ulbricht's in Atlanta.
Yep.
Salah's defense has been gutted.
Yep.
Right. San Francisco kind of resets what they're doing. The Falcons desperately need defense. They only sent their defensive coaches to the combine. Like they're like defense, defense, defense. So is it Quincy or maybe there's a lower player, profile wise that these guys really like, and so maybe you can make a trade and like is Ayuk available? I know he's coming off an injury. Would you be interested there? Kyle Pitts, are you interested there? And could you trade players and then lower the draft compensation you're giving up? And so instead of giving them 3 picks, maybe you're giving them 2 lower picks and a player. I think it's a creative way to try to approach the roster building. We don't know that it's hard to predict trades, hard to predict what's available. But to me, I'd be trying to take advantage of having those two guys out there. It's not quite equal because Eric was the decision maker in Cleveland. He was the head coach. But I'm sure Salah and Ulbrich have pull in those organizations. And if they say, like, this guy's, I really want this guy, it might happen. So I'd be pushing that button if I was Darren Mougey.
And that's where I wonder again, like you said, a guy like Quincy Williams, who Salah and Ulbrich, I'm sure, loved when their time coaching here with the Jets. Could you use him potentially as a trade target and improve your team in the weaknesses that the Jets currently have, which we could all agree. It's still another wide receiver too, a defensive tackle, run stopping. They need help at right tackle, obviously. They need a tight end. So there's a lot of holes still on this team that they need to address. And you wonder, like you said, could you use some of these players that you have to potentially make the deal and improve your team? Guys, I want to ask you this, considering how we've talked about their free agency approach. I want to bring up this quote, and this is something Aaron Glenn said to you, Kaz. He said, "Every decision that me and Mougey make is to win, and to win now." So should we believe Aaron Glenn when he says that after we've just talked about all these offseason moves that they made, or lack thereof, and where this Jets team seems to be going in 2025?
No, because of the word in there is now, Ryan, right? I believe this is about winning, but I believe this is about building a winning culture and building something that's sustainable and long term and not just a quick fix, throw money at the problems, right? No one can sit there right now and tell me the Jets roster is better today than it was last season. Like we know how last season went for a variety of reasons, but if you're lining up on paper, like, this roster right now is not in better shape than it was, and that's fine. Like they're resetting the roster, but yeah, the now part. I mean, he was talking, Ryan, to players when he said that. He's got to deliver that message to the locker room. I think he was talking to people at that point. Potential free agent signings. I get it. It's coach speak. He's got. No one ever says we're trying to lose, and then, but they're resetting the roster right now, for sure.
It seems like to me, Frankie, that the Jets are approaching this, that they believe in their coaching staff more than anything, and they're preaching their coaching staff is going to be able to get the most out of the young talent on this roster. Do you agree with that?
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think, Ryan, they think that they're going to be able to find some quality players to come in here and actually change things. I think that Aaron, Glenn, and Mougey together, and they're a combination, right? I think any move that Mougey's making, Glenn's giving the thumbs up, vice versa. I think they're both working hand in hand. Glenn might even have a little more power to a degree.
Remember, Woody Johnson called Mougey his sidekick. Remember that. So
Yes, exactly. And Glenn did mention he's not calling the defense, meaning I am the CEO. I am the all hands on type of head coach that's doing everything. I have all the keys. So I think they believe in their ability to find players. I do. So with that said, I'm not sure if the coaching staff is as established in their eyes as maybe some optimistic fans think it is, but I do think they have some plans to find a quarterback down the line, to address the defensive line issues, to find some safeties or players in the back half there. So I do think they're confident, and they seem like they're on on point with everything they've said about the type of players they want to bring in. But we'll see if they don't get the quarterback right. Nothing else really matters, right? I mean, you could try whatever you want. If Tanner Engstrand can't put the quarterback in a position to succeed or to find guys the ball so they can actually get Yak for once, and Garrett and Bree specifically, I don't know if this thing can work. They need a quarterback first and foremost, but I think they're confident in who they can find. I really do. I think they believe that they're gonna find a quarterback for the long term, and they're gonna fix the D line, et cetera. So I do actually believe that.
So they believe that they can find the right players, and what Kaz is saying is that was coach speak. That they're when Glenn says we're trying to win and win now, that's for players and approach and free agency. It's a matter of how these fans are going to be reacting to those first couple weeks of the season, Kaz, and how they're seeing what Glenn is able to cook up with this team in his first season. Guys, last segment here. I want to get your final thoughts about the approach in the draft now for the Jets. Now that we've been through a couple weeks of free agency, there's, like I said, there's still a lot of holes to fill. We all know them. I'll start off with you, Kaz. What are your thoughts about the Jets and their approach in the draft at number 7, and also just the rest of the draft overall?
Yeah, I think 7 is fascinating in terms of, do you go tight end with the kid from Penn State, Warren? Do you take the tackle? Membu seems to be the guy now emerging. Post combine, is the defensive tackle Graham there from Michigan? Do you go there? I mean, it's an interesting conversation. I was on Mel Kiper's call yesterday, and he was talking about it, and just, he thinks they need to get Justin Fields another playmaker. And I think when you look at it, if they're not getting another receiver, uh, tight end starts making even more sense. But we all know that it starts up front, and they could use another. They definitely need a right tackle. So I would start diving deep if I was them, Ryan, and how I feel about the depth at each position, and what do I think I can address in the second and third round that I don't take in the first round, and where's the biggest drop off at the positions, and try to go that way. But to me, it's those three positions right now at number 7 you're looking at, and seeing. I think it's going to be interesting to see where the Jaguars go and the Raiders go, right? I think the first 4 picks we kind of know are going to be probably be 2 quarterbacks, Abdul Carter and Hunter. And then where do the 2 picks in front of the Jets go? Do they target any of the guys the Jets are looking at?
Frankie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off that a bit, I do think they need to address the offense first and foremost. I think at 7 specifically, if you don't take a wide receiver, for example, it's going to be tough to get one at 42 because this is a very thin wide receiver class for the most part. I do like guys like Trey Harris later on, but he might not even be there for the Jets' second round pick. So to kind of put that in perspective, if the Jets want to fill up that tight end room, that wide receiver room, and at least get Garrett some help with a wide receiver too, I mean, there's really nobody available now in free agency. A trade could happen, but they may need to address a wide receiver at 7. I like 2 guys. I'm a Matthew Golden fan, and then right behind him, I like Tet. So I'm kind of fine with either or. Now you can also go with Warren. Go with Tyler Warren. That can be a valuable, player there because of his ability to run block in addition to what he could do as a pass catcher. I think he had over 1,500 yards at Penn State. So he can be a great pass catcher in the NFL, but I wouldn't put him in that Brock Bowers category because of how big he is, and he doesn't really cut in and out as fluid as a Brock Bowers, but he's a better run blocker than Brock Bowers. But with that being said, if the Jets want to get Tyler Warren, though, they have to consider that there are other tight ends later on in the draft. So it's all about value and who's going to be there and when. I think Tyler Warren I like a lot. The problem is I'd like a lot of other tight ends in this draft. I like Mason Taylor. I really like Gunnar Helm. I like the kid Ferguson. So they need to find out if it's worth their while to get Tyler Warren, and then they're out of that tight end market for the most part, unless they want to double up. But I think offense, though, to kind of make a long-winded answer short, offense. If you want to get Membu, take Membu, who I was doing some work on this week. Very, very good quality right tackle, but he's only a right tackle, so that's it. He's not really projected out to be a left because of the way he positions himself. He really is a guy that is a right tackle. I like Will Campbell more, but Will Campbell's arm length is actually alarming.
Here we go, Ryan.
Yeah.
T-Rex arms.
Yes.
It's draft season.
Arms,
Frankie,
actually.
you got to understand. You got to understand where Kaz is coming from. Kaz does not look into the arm length, the weight, or anything like that.
Can he play football?
Can he play football? That's all Kaz cares about. How does he play on Sundays? How does that player play on Sunday? That's all Kaz cares about.
Kaz is 99% right. However, there is something with Campbell. I love Will Campbell, and I was all in on take Will Campbell if he's there at 7. Don't think twice. This arm length thing, does worry me a little bit because it's never really been done before for a left or right tackle outside of the Braden Smith kid in Indianapolis. It's never been done. So he would have to shatter a mold that has been shattered already by Braden. I don't know. We could talk about this for days. At the end of the day, I would address the offensive side of the ball. Let Aaron Glenn and Wilkes figure out the defense. You have two established defensive coaches there. You have no real established offensive coaches here. So
That's a good
why
point,
not
Frankie.
just give them resources and high quality potential assets that maybe they can figure things out. Don't make life harder than it's already going to be for them.
Look,
Kinda-
I think
Once
we
upon a
the point.
time, Ryan, I was told Melvin Ingram's arms were too short, and that's why the Jets weren't going to take him, and they took Quentin Coples instead.
That's a good
Melvin
point.
Ingram, I think, retired in 2023, had about 60 sacks in his career. Coples, not so much. So yeah, the arms, yeah, I get
Cobbles
it.
had
Dad.
60
Well, you're
snaps
not.
in his career.
People are always going crazy with the Membu is the guy now. Like all
Yeah.
the draft guys have him. You're not alone. They all have him number one now.
So I think the big discussion. I'm sure we'll have future episodes about it, but and we'll talk about not today, but the Sauce and Garrett stuff. But the draft approach here, the sexy name is Tyler Warren. The sexy name last year was Brock Bowers, but the Jets were smart and picked Olu Fashanu, which was the right pick because Tyron Smith ended up getting hurt like usual, and Olu stepped in and I think we can all agree performed pretty well for his first year in the NFL. Is Memu going to be like Olu? I don't know. But you have a glaring hole at right tackle, and you haven't filled it in all of our opinions. I think we'd all agree. They haven't filled that spot yet. They need a right tackle desperately to establish a strong offensive line to make Justin Fields' life easier. And I think you bring up a great point, Frankie, about this is a very young, inexperienced offensive staff. So if you could support them with more on the offensive side of the ball, and specifically on offensive line, I just look at what the Detroit Lions did. And if Glenn's going to follow that approach, you would hope so. Build a strong offensive line, build that wall in front of whoever that quarterback is, and let them eat for the next 5 to hopefully 10 years, and you have a strong offensive line. But we'll see. We'll have a lot more discussions about this.
What round was Amon-Ra St. Brown taken in?
Amon-Ra was the second round, right? There was like 7.
No, he was in the fourth
Oh,
round.
he was in the 4th round, yeah.
So so if you want to take Penei Sewell, you want okay, but give me Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round, please. Like that to me, like I said, we're gonna talk
I agree
about
with you there.
so much. To me, the whole thing for the Jets and what's been holding them, one of the things that's holding them back. Obviously, there's been many, but draft some starting players on day 3, please. That you have to be able to do that. That's how you turn things around. Like Detroit.
Anywhere, by the way, anywhere. Draft a starter that can just start anywhere on the field. Doesn't have to be in one position. Just have a fill-in person that can develop as a rookie and can start. I agree, Kaz.
The Penei Sewell pick looks great because they got Amon St. Brown in the 4th round. So now there wasn't a whole receiver. It's just they just had that's if you're a Jets fan and you're kind of iffy about this approach that they took to free agency, it's all about the draft and not just the first pick. Can they get some freaking players in here on day 3? Because other than Jamie and Sherwood and Michael Carter II, there haven't been many here.
Kaz, let me ask you a question, and Ryan too. Just quick question. Now with Breece Hall in the last year of his deal, right? Do the Jets want to look at day 3? Because this running back class is stacked. I mean, you can go 12, 15 backs deep. It's not worth it for us to an extent, but because we have Breece and Braylon. But
it's tough because they took 2 last year, right? It's tough.
I know. And Davis, Isaiah. I just
Isaiah Davis showed flashes and
Yeah, I would love, Scadaboo, everyone's talking about, right? For example, a running back like that. I would rather have him than Isaiah Davis, but he's kind of like a better version of Isaiah Davis, and we have Isaiah Davis. So, I don't know, but do the Jets want to say,
I think you have to know, Frankie, what they're thinking with Breece. Are they thinking the franchise tag is a possibility in 2026 with Breece? Are they thinking an extension is a possibility with Breece? I don't know what they probably don't know yet, right? They haven't even seen Breece on the field in front of their eyes yet. So, but I think that's part of the discussion is that on the table even that you're going to tag him next year, or pay or give him a contract. I wouldn't think that, but then maybe start thinking. But I don't know. I guess it depends on the players that are there. But I would I feel like they're pretty good. Running back is probably the strength of the roster right now.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
offense, it definitely is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, depth wise, like I think they have three decent players there. So I think they have one
Yeah.
better than decent, and then two rookies that showed potential last year.
finally, Kaz, does Justin Fields preclude them from taking a quarterback in this draft?
No, I mean, look at the like we're talking about. This is a roll of the dice. So if there's somebody they like in this draft, they should take them. I think you probably will see a quarterback taken at some point in this draft by them to develop behind Fields and Taylor. They need to start filling that pipeline up. Especially Jordan Travis is a wild card. Know if he's ever going to play. So I would definitely consider taking one, and I don't think Fields being here stops that at all.
Certainly some things to watch as the offseason continues to go. And like Kaz said, we're looking forward to seeing the owners' meetings coming up here. And then before you know it, it'll be draft season. We're already in draft season, really, but we'll be getting ready for it.
Kicks up another notch in a few weeks.
That's right. Kaz, Frankie, thank you, fellas, as always, for joining us on Gangs All Here. And like always, Jets fans, go Jets. Thanks, fellas.
All right.
Thank you, guys.